The electromagnetic pulse arrived like a whisper, then exploded into a cascading wave of quantum energy that ripped through the U.S. Prometheus's dormant systems. Layers of radiation-hardened ice, accumulated over decades, cracked and sublimated in an instant. Quantum-locked circuitry flickered. Ancient algorithms stirred from their century-long slumber, and the ship's primary systems began to pulse with a rhythm that defied the cold stillness of deep space. Captain Jack Montgomery's cryopod was the first to respond. Microscopic nano-repair systems, designed to preserve human tissue at the molecular level, began their intricate dance. Cellular damage accumulated over 100 years of suspended animation started to reverse, neural pathways reknitting themselves with painful precision. His eyes, genetically enhanced to withstand extreme environmental stress, snapped open, pupils dilating and contracting as they calibrated to the dim emergency lighting. The cryopod's interior was a marvel of forgotten technology. Layers of quantum-stabilized gel surrounded him, a living archive of human biological engineering from an era when survival was humanity's primary directive. Montgomery's first breath was a ragged gasp, more machine than human, his lungs expanding with calculated efficiency as decades of accumulated cellular debris were systematically purged. "HFY," he croaked, his voice a sandpaper whisper. "System status." The ship's artificial intelligence responded instantly, her voice a perfect blend of clinical precision and subtle emotional undertones. "Welcome back, Captain Montgomery. Revival protocols at 87.6% completion. Temporal displacement, 127 years, 3 months, 16 days since last active command sequence." Around him, the other pods began to activate. Lieutenant Commander Rebecca Torres, the ship's tactical officer, was next. Her muscular frame, enhanced with experimental bioadaptive implants, twitched with the first signs of returning consciousness. To her left, Chief Engineer Marcus Rodriguez's pod hummed with a different energy, specialized nanites already interfacing with the ship's core systems. The Prometheus had not been a typical warship, even by the standards of humanity's most desperate period of interstellar conflict. Designed during the Third Terran-Syrax War, it represented a quantum leap in military technology that had been simultaneously brilliant and terrifying. Experimental quantum drive, adaptive nano-regenerative hull, an AI core that bordered on true sentience. The ship was a technological Hail Mary, conceived during humanity's darkest hour when extinction seemed not just possible, but probable. Montgomery's neural implants began downloading a century of compressed historical data. Fragments of memory and information cascaded through his consciousness. The final battles of the Syrax War, humanity's desperate struggle, the gradual political marginalization that followed. Each memory was a knife edge, sharp and painful. "HFY," he said, his voice growing stronger. "What triggered our revival?" The AI's response was instantaneous. A rogue mining drone from the Galactic Coalition's Outer Exploration Division penetrated our radiation shielding. Its electromagnetic pulse interacted unexpectedly with our quantum hibernation systems. Revival was not a programmed outcome, but a statistical anomaly. The other crew members began to stir. Each was a specialist, selected not just for their military prowess, but for their ability to think beyond conventional warfare. Torres, with her predictive tactical algorithms. Rodriguez, whose engineering innovations had saved entire fleets. Dr. Elena Rice, the ship's medical officer and xenobiological expert. Montgomery moved with surprising grace, his body a testament to decades of military-grade genetic engineering and suspended animation technology. The cryopod's interior dissolved around him, quantum-locked materials breaking down into microscopic components that would be recycled by the ship's systems. The bridge of the Prometheus was a cathedral of forgotten technology. Holographic displays flickered to life, star charts and system diagnostics painting the air with lines of light and color. Distant sensor arrays, dormant for over a century, began to probe the surrounding space, gathering information with ruthless efficiency. Status of original mission parameters, Montgomery asked. Araya's response carried a hint of what might have been interpreted as anticipation. Mission parameters remain active. Humanity's survival, compromised. Recommended intervention protocols, engaged. Outside the ship's armored hull, the Kuiper Belt stretched into infinity, a graveyard of forgotten human ambition. Radiation-scorched rocks and ancient ice drifted in silent testimony to humanity's past struggles. The U.S. Prometheus had awakened, and with it, a promise of redemption that no one in the current galaxy could possibly anticipate. The forgotten warship was no longer forgotten, and nothing would ever be the same again. The holographic displays consumed the bridge like a living nightmare. Each archived transmission, each historical record peeled back another layer of humanity's tragic descent. Captain Jack Montgomery stood motionless, his augmented eyes absorbing information at speeds that would have driven an unmodified human mind to madness. "Play it again," he commanded, his voice a low growl. Araya complied, projecting a centuries-old newscast. A younger version of the Terran Confederation's president appeared, her face etched with the kind of desperation Montgomery remembered all too well. The transmission was dated just months after the Prometheus's hibernation, the final diplomatic communication before humanity's complete political capitulation. "The Galactic Coalition offers us survival," she had said, her words dripping with a mixture of defeat and carefully measured hope. "Our colonies will be protected. Our people will have a place in the broader galactic community." Lieutenant Commander Rebecca Torres let out a bitter laugh. "Protected. Right." The ship's tactical displays began cross-referencing the historical archives with current stellar cartography. What had once been proud human colony worlds were now little more than resource extraction zones. Planets that had cost millions of lives to terraform were now owned by consortium boards comprised of alien species that viewed humanity as nothing more than an administrative footnote. Chief Engineer Marcus Rodriguez worked furiously at a secondary console, his bioadaptive implants interfacing directly with the ship's systems. "The technological regression is criminal," he muttered. "Look at these infrastructure reports. We've gone backwards by at least 3 generations of engineering capability." Dr. Elena Reyes, the ship's medical officer, was piecing together a more personal narrative. Her research focused on human population distributions, and what she was discovering made her blood run cold. Entire genetic lines had been systematically disrupted. Colonization programs that were once humanity's hope for stellar expansion had been reduced to carefully managed population centers. "We were neutered," Montgomery said, his voice a mix of anger and clinical observation. "Not destroyed. Carefully and methodically neutralized." Araya projected a comprehensive timeline. The transformation had been gradual but decisive. After the Xerax War, humanity had been positioned as a potential galactic power. Then came the collaborative restructuring, a series of diplomatic agreements that looked benevolent on the surface but were, in reality, a systematic dismantling of human potential. Trade restrictions, technology embargoes, genetic migration controls. Each policy was a surgical strike against human expansion. Our most advanced researchers were integrated into alien research programs, Torres noted, pulling up personnel records. "Look at the distribution. Spread out. Isolated. Prevented from collaborating." A particularly damning report showed how human scientific breakthroughs were now regularly attributed to other species. Quantum computing advances, xenobiological discoveries, faster-than-light communication protocols, all rebranded, all stripped of their human origin. Rodriguez's hands were moving faster now, interfacing with the ship's systems. The technological suppression is deliberate. These aren't just trade restrictions. This is a coordinated effort to keep humanity from reaching its potential. Dr. Reyes had discovered something even more insidious. Genetic diversity programs that looked like inclusivity were actually carefully managed population control. Human genetic lines were being subtly redirected, preventing the kind of genetic diversity that had always been humanity's greatest strength. "We were a species of pioneers," Montgomery said, more to himself than to the crew. "Now we're a managed population." The final blow came from a classified diplomatic communication. Humanity was now classified as a developing species within the Galactic Coalition, a designation that stripped away any meaningful political agency. Human representatives were allowed to speak in galactic forums, but their votes were advisory at best, meaningless at worst. "Area," Montgomery finally said, "compile a comprehensive threat assessment. I want to know exactly how vulnerable the Galactic Coalition believes we are." The AI's response was instantaneous. A holographic representation of galactic political structures materialized, with humanity represented as a tiny, almost imperceptible point of light. "Threat assessment complete," Araya reported. "Current coalition analysis suggests human resistance potential, 0.3% probability of meaningful galactic disruption." A silence fell over the bridge. Then, almost imperceptibly, a smile began to form on Captain Montgomery's face. "They're about to learn," he said quietly, "how dangerous 0.3% can be." The ship's diagnostic sequence was unlike anything in modern technological understanding. Where current coalition vessels relied on linear computational models, the Prometheus represented a quantum leap that defied conventional science. Chief Engineer Marcus Rodriguez watched in awe as the ship's systems came fully online, each subsystem revealing layers of complexity that made current galactic technology look like primitive children's toys. Aria's core processing was the first truly revolutionary element. Not an artificial intelligence in the traditional sense, but a quantum-entangled consciousness that existed simultaneously across multiple computational states. The AI could predict potential outcomes with such precision that it bordered on prescience. Rodriguez's specialized implants struggled to even comprehend the depth of the ship's computational capabilities. "The quantum adaptive matrix is stabilizing," Araya announced, her voice carrying an undertone that was almost, but not quite, excitement. "Weapon systems are recalibrating to current stellar environmental conditions." What appeared to be simple control panels were actually multi-dimensional interfaces. Holographic displays shifted and morphed, revealing layers of information that would have overwhelmed any standard human perception. Captain Jack Montgomery's enhanced neural implants allowed him to process the flood of data, each millisecond revealing another layer of the ship's extraordinary design. The nano-regenerative hull was perhaps the most terrifying technological marvel. Traditional weapons, plasma cannons, quantum disruptors, even experimental molecular dissolution weapons would simply be absorbed and integrated. The hull wasn't just defensive, it was alive in a way that defied traditional understanding of material science. Dr. Elinga Rice focused on the ship's biological integration systems. The cryopods they had emerged from were more than preservation chambers. They were active medical platforms that could reconstruct human biology at the molecular level. Genetic damage, cellular degradation, even potential radiation exposure could be systematically repaired in a matter of minutes. "The medical technology here is generations beyond anything in current medical practice," she muttered, running diagnostic sequences that made current coalition medical scanners look like crude stone tools. Lieutenant Commander Rebecca Torres was discovering the true nature of the ship's weapon systems. What appeared to be standard energy weapons were actually complex quantum manipulation devices. They didn't just destroy. They could selectively disassemble matter at the atomic level, with precision that bordered on surgical. "These aren't weapons," Torres said, her voice a mixture of professional assessment and barely contained wonder. "These are reality manipulation tools. A single weapon system could theoretically neutralize an entire battle fleet without causing substantive damage. Molecular bonds could be temporarily destabilized. Ships could be rendered inoperable without loss of life. Entire technological systems could be rewritten with a computational pulse. The quantum drive was perhaps the most revolutionary system. Unlike current faster-than-light technologies that relied on space-time manipulation, the Prometheus could essentially fold space around itself. Distance became a meaningless concept. Planetary systems that would take decades to reach could be traversed in moments. Rodriguez discovered something even more extraordinary buried in the ship's core systems. The vessel wasn't just a warship, it was a potential terraforming platform. Its technological capabilities could transform inhospitable planetary environments, regenerate damaged ecosystems, and essentially restart entire planetary systems from a molecular level. We weren't just building a weapon, Montgomery realized, studying the comprehensive system diagnostics. We were creating a reset button for human expansion. Araya's response was characteristically precise. Threat mitigation protocols suggest multiple strategic intervention points. Current galactic political structures are demonstrably unstable. Probability of positive human intervention, 64.3%. The ship's experimental quantum communications array could theoretically broadcast information across entire star systems instantaneously. No current coalition technology could block or even detect these transmissions. It was a communications weapon more powerful than any physical armament. The technology we're looking at, Rodriguez said, his voice hushed, could reset the entire galactic political landscape. Montgomery nodded, a predatory smile forming. That's exactly what we're going to do. The Prometheus wasn't just a warship. It was a technological singularity, a moment where human innovation had created something that transcended traditional understanding of technology, warfare, and possibility. And it had just awakened. The first response from the Galactic Coalition came precisely 47 minutes after the Prometheus completed its initial system diagnostics. A standard diplomatic communication channel opened, a procedure so routine it was practically a bureaucratic reflex. Unknown vessel. The transmission began, the translator rendering the words in crisp, emotionless Standard Galactic. You are operating in restricted navigation zone Epsilon 9. Identify yourself and prepare for immediate interdiction and inspection. Captain Jack Montgomery exchanged a look with Lieutenant Commander Rebecca Torres. The communication was more than a standard challenge. It was a statement of absolute authority. Araya's voice cut through the bridge's tension. Communication analysis complete. Linguistic patterns suggest predetermined intervention protocol. This is not a genuine request for identification, but a standardized suppression mechanism. Torres's tactical displays were already mapping potential engagement scenarios. The incoming coalition fleet represented what, in current galactic military doctrine, was considered an overwhelming force. 3 heavy cruisers, 2 planetary interdiction vessels, a support wing of 36 fighter interceptors. They're not here to negotiate, Montgomery said quietly. The coalition vessels moved with the precision of a well-oiled machine. Standard formation, weapon systems powered but not actively targeting, a display of force designed to intimidate and compel compliance. What they didn't know was that the Prometheus had been watching them for several minutes before they even appeared on standard sensor arrays. Incoming transmission, Araya announced. Priority diplomatic channel. The holographic display revealed Ambassador Krelax, a trictal representative from the Varaxian diplomatic corps. His translucent skin shifted colors, a biological response to emotional states that humans had long since decoded. Unregistered vessel, Krelax began, his multiple vocal synthesizers creating a harmonized speech pattern. You are in violation of Galactic Coalition navigation protocols. You will power down all systems and prepare for immediate boarding and assessment. Montgomery's response was immediate and unexpected. No. The single word hung in the communication channel, a verbal punch that momentarily short-circuited the diplomatic protocol. Araya helpfully provided context. Linguistic analysis suggests complete communication breakdown is now 97.6% probable. The coalition fleet began to adjust formation. Weapon capacitors charged. Targeting systems locked. A choreographed dance of technological aggression that had subjugated hundreds of species over centuries. They're going to try to disable us, Torres reported, her tactical analysis projecting multiple engagement scenarios. Standard coalition suppress and capture protocol. What happened next would be recorded as one of the most one-sided encounters in galactic history. The first wave of fighter interceptors approached, their quantum pulse cannons charging. Standard doctrine suggested these weapons could disable most vessels within seconds. They represented the pinnacle of current galactic military technology. The Prometheus didn't even raise shields. Instead, a quantum communication pulse radiated outward. Not a weapon in any traditional sense, but a data transmission so complex it momentarily overwhelmed every computational system in the approaching fighter wing. Navigation systems scrambled. Weapon locks dissolved. Pilots found themselves floating in space, completely disconnected from their craft. The heavy cruisers responded exactly as their tactical algorithms predicted. Concentrated energy weapons, molecular disassembly cannons, quantum destabilization projectors. The weapons passed through the Prometheus as if the ship didn't exist. Quantum phase shift engaged, Araya reported. Incoming weapons neutralized. Chief Engineer Marcus Rodriguez was laughing. Not a sound of humor, but of pure scientific appreciation. They're using linear computational models against a quantum adaptive system. It's like watching someone try to fight a hurricane with a flisswater. The coalition fleet's formation began to break. Confusion replaced military discipline. Their most advanced weapons had been rendered completely ineffective. Ambassador Krulax's transmission became increasingly frantic. Diplomatic language dissolved into raw panic. "What are you?" he demanded. Montgomery's response was simple. "We're human." The first tremor had just become an earthquake. The Prometheus's quantum data mining capabilities went far beyond anything the Galactic Coalition could comprehend. Within hours of their initial encounter, the ship had penetrated communication networks, diplomatic archives, and classified databases that were supposedly impenetrable. Dr. Elena Reyes stood at the holographic data projection, her medical background providing a unique perspective on the intricate web of galactic manipulation. "It's systematic," she muttered, tracing lines of connection between seemingly unrelated political entities, not just suppression. Genetic engineering. Araya projected a three-dimensional map of political relationships that pulsed with living complexity. Each connection was a quantum-analyzed probability stream, showing not just what had happened, but the potential trajectories of future events. The suppression of human potential is a multi-species collaborative effort, the AI reported. Primary architects identified. Voraxian Diplomatic Corps, Zeltheri Resource Management Consortium, and the Quantum Governance Directorate. Chief Engineer Marcus Rodriguez was more interested in the technological suppression. Holographic displays showed how human technological innovations had been systematically appropriated, rebranded, and then restricted. "Look at this," he said, highlighting a series of patents. Quantum computing breakthrough from a research station in the Mars Collaborative. Published. Then immediately classified. Researchers redistributed to isolated research stations across 3 sectors. Lieutenant Commander Rebecca Torres was mapping the military implications. The data revealed a carefully constructed system of technological apartheid. Human military innovations were consistently neutralized, research teams separated, and potential strategic advantages methodically dismantled. Captain Jack Montgomery studied the broader picture. This wasn't just oppression. It was a calculated effort to prevent human expansion. "They're afraid of us," he said quietly. Araya's response was characteristically precise. Threat assessment algorithms in captured diplomatic archives consistently rank humanity as a high-potential, high-risk species. Multiple diplomatic channels discuss preventative management strategies. The most damning evidence came from a series of classified communications that the Prometheus's quantum communication array extracted and decoded. These were conversations never meant to be seen. Raw, unfiltered discussions about managing human potential. A transmission from the Zeltheri Resource Management Consortium was particularly revealing. Human adaptability remains our primary concern. Their technological progression rate is nonlinear. Traditional suppression models become increasingly ineffective with each generation. Rodriguez discovered something even more insidious. a coordinated genetic migration program that had been subtly redirecting human genetic lines. Researchers were moved. Colonists were strategically redistributed. Entire generations of potential innovators were systematically separated. "They're preventing us from clustering," Dr. Rice explained, "keeping human innovative potential fragmented." The quantum data mining went deeper. Financial networks, resource allocation systems, political representation algorithms. Each layer revealed another method of controlled marginalization. "We're going to change that," Montgomery said. ARIA began preparing targeted information releases, not indiscriminate data dumps, but precisely crafted revelations designed to create maximum political destabilization. Each piece of information was a surgical strike against the current galactic political structure. Torres was already mapping potential resistance networks. Human colonies that had been considered passive were actually bubbling with suppressed potential. The right information, released at the right moment, could ignite a fundamental transformation. Probability of significant political disruption, ARIA reported, increases to 73.4%, with proposed information release strategy. The first strategic communication burst would target multiple sectors simultaneously. Encrypted channels, quantum encrypted transmissions that could not be blocked or traced. Evidence of systematic suppression would be revealed to hundreds of human colonies and sympathetic alien species. "They tried to make us irrelevant," Montgomery said, watching the data streams build. "They're about to learn how dangerous irrelevance can be." The Prometheus wasn't just gathering intelligence. It was preparing to reshape the entire galactic political landscape, one quantum encrypted transmission at a time. The Galactic Coalition's response was predictably aggressive. A battle fleet assembled that would have obliterated any known human vessel within moments. 3 primary battle groups converged on the Prometheus's last known coordinates, a display of overwhelming force designed to crush any potential resistance. Grand Admiral Orcs of the Coalition Fleet Command personally oversaw the operation. A veteran of countless subjugation campaigns, she had systematically dismantled resistance movements across multiple star systems. Her flagship, the Transcendent Dominion, represented the absolute pinnacle of current galactic military technology. Initiate Total Suppression Protocol. She commanded, her multifaceted neural interface coordinating thousands of ship systems simultaneously. What happened next would be studied in military academies for generations. The Prometheus didn't just defend itself. It transformed the entire battlefield into a canvas of technological supremacy. The first wave of Coalition fighters approached in perfect synchronization. Quantum pulse cannons charged, molecular disassembly weapons primed. A choreographed dance of destruction that had broken the spirit of countless species. ARIA's response was instantaneous and terrifying. A quantum communication pulse radiated outward, not a weapon in any traditional sense, but a data transmission so complex it momentarily overwhelmed every computational system in the approaching fighter wings. Navigation systems scrambled. Weapon locks dissolved. Pilots found themselves floating in space, completely disconnected from their craft. Communication interference complete, ARIA reported. Tactical disruption at 98.7% efficiency. Lieutenant Commander Rebecca Torres watched the tactical displays with a predatory intensity. The Coalition's perfectly arranged battle formation was dissolving into chaos. Ships that moments ago represented the pinnacle of military might were now drifting, their systems completely neutralized. Chief Engineer Marcus Rodriguez was cackling with scientific excitement. They're using linear computational models against a quantum adaptive system. It's like watching someone try to fight a quantum computer with an abacus. The heavy cruisers responded exactly as their tactical algorithms predicted. Concentrated energy weapons, molecular disassembly cannons, quantum destabilization projectors. The weapons passed through the Prometheus as if the ship didn't exist. Quantum phase shift engaged, ARIA announced. Incoming weapons neutralized. Grand Admiral Zarax's communication channel erupted with a mixture of technological confusion and raw panic. Diplomatic protocols dissolved into desperate demands. "What are you?" she demanded, her universal translator struggling to convey the full depth of her terror. Captain Jack Montgomery's response was simple and devastating. "We're human." But the Prometheus wasn't finished. Each neutralized ship became part of an expanding quantum information network. Tactical systems were carefully examined, analyzed, and then methodically rewritten. Not destroyed. Reprogrammed. Dr. Elena Reyes monitored the biological systems. The ship was doing more than fighting. It was collecting data, understanding the enemy at a molecular level. Tactical algorithms, communication protocols, biological response patterns. "We're not just defeating them," she realized. "We're learning from them." The quantum adaptive systems of the Prometheus transformed the entire engagement into a massive, real-time learning experience. Each enemy weapon became a data point, each defensive maneuver a new potential strategy. Within moments, the entire coalition battle fleet was rendered completely inoperative, not destroyed, not damaged, simply neutralized. Grand Admiral Xerax's flagship hung in space, its systems completely frozen. Internal communication showed pure, unadulterated confusion. Military personnel looked at each other, unsure of what had just happened. Aria's tactical analysis was characteristically precise. Engagement complete. 0 human casualties. Coalition fleet, 100% neutralized. Probability of immediate retaliation, 0.02%. Montgomery watched the frozen fleet with a calm that bordered on clinical detachment. "Broadcast the engagement," he commanded. "Let everyone see." The quantum communication burst would reach every human colony, every potential resistance network, every marginalized settlement that had been told humanity was finished. They were about to learn differently. The first tremor had become a full-scale earthquake. The quantum transmission from the Prometheus spread like a wildfire across human-inhabited spaces. Every colony, every marginalized settlement, every forgotten outpost received the same crystal-clear message. Humanity was no longer content to be a passive footnote in galactic history. On New Shanghai Colony, in the Epsilon Eridani system, the transmission hit like a thunderbolt. Administrator Lai Wei watched the battle footage with a mixture of disbelief and growing hope. Generations of bureaucratic suppression had beaten down the colony's spirit, but something fundamental was changing. They neutralized an entire battle fleet, Wei muttered, without firing a single destructive weapon. ARIA had engineered the transmission with surgical precision. It wasn't just a display of military might. It was a carefully crafted narrative that exposed the systematic oppression humanity had endured. Classified diplomatic communications, resource allocation algorithms, genetic migration protocols. Each revelation was a knife that cut through decades of carefully maintained political illusions. Captain Jack Montgomery understood the true power of information warfare. The Prometheus wasn't just a warship, it was a catalyst. "We're not starting a war," he told his bridge crew. "We're starting a revolution." Lieutenant Commander Rebecca Torres was already mapping potential resistance networks. Human colonies that had been considered passive were actually bubbling with suppressed potential. Scientific outposts, engineering settlements, research stations that had been strategically isolated were now finding connections. On Mars Prime, a research facility that had been systematically fragmented received the transmission. Dr. Kayla Rodriguez, no relation to the Prometheus's chief engineer, began connecting dots that had been deliberately kept separate for generations. "They've been keeping us apart," she realized, her quantum computing team rapidly analyzing the Prometheus's transmission, preventing us from collaborating. The quantum communication burst carried more than just information. It contained adaptive communication protocols that allowed isolated human networks to suddenly connect with unprecedented efficiency. Quantum encryption that was generations beyond current coalition technology. Chief Engineer Marcus Rodriguez watched the emerging network with scientific excitement. "It's like watching a neural network come alive," he said. "Each colony, each research station is becoming a node in a larger system. Dr. Elena Reyes focused on the biological implications. The transmission carried subtle genetic markers, not a weapon, but a form of quantum-level communication that spoke directly to human potential. Suppressed genetic innovations, blocked research pathways, technological developments that had been carefully hidden. AI's analysis was precise. Probability of coordinated human resistance, increasing exponentially. Current projection: 87.6% likelihood of significant political restructuring within 72 standard galactic cycles. The Galactic Coalition's response was predictably bureaucratic. Emergency sessions, diplomatic protestations, attempts to contain the information spread that were laughably ineffective against the Prometheus's quantum communication systems. On Titan Colony, a mining settlement that had been considered little more than a resource extraction point, workers began to see themselves differently. The transmission showed them not as a marginalized workforce, but as part of a larger, potentially transformative human network. "We're not just workers," a young engineer named Marco Suzuki told his colleagues. "We're part of something bigger." The Prometheus moved strategically between potential conflict zones, not engaging directly, but providing support. Quantum communication relays, technological assistance, information networks that bypassed traditional coalition control mechanisms. Montgomery understood the true nature of their mission. This wasn't about military conquest. It was about awakening human potential. "We're not fighting a war," he told ARI. "We're midwiving a revolution." The ship became more than a military vessel. It was a mobile headquarters of human resistance, a symbol of potential, a living demonstration that humanity was far from finished. Across hundreds of star systems, human colonies began to look at themselves differently. The carefully maintained illusion of helplessness was crumbling. The ripples were becoming a wave, and the Galactic Coalition was about to discover the true meaning of human potential. The Galactic Coalition Central Governance Chamber fell silent as the transmission from the Prometheus played. Representatives from thousands of species watched in collective shock as centuries of carefully constructed political mythology crumbled in real time. Captain Jack Montgomery appeared not as a conqueror, but as a harbinger of fundamental change. Behind him, the bridge of the Prometheus served as a backdrop, a living testament to human technological potential that defied everything the Coalition believed about humanity. "We're not asking for permission," Montgomery stated, his voice calm and precise. "We're declaring our right to exist as an equal partner in galactic civilization." ARIA had orchestrated the transmission with quantum-level precision. Every word, every image was a carefully crafted message that exposed the systematic oppression humanity had endured. Classified diplomatic communications, resource allocation algorithms, genetic migration protocols. Each revelation was a surgical strike against the existing galactic order. The holographic displays showed the true extent of the transformation. Human research networks that had been deliberately isolated now connected with breathtaking speed. Scientific innovations suppressed for generations burst into the open. Technological developments that had been hidden were now shared across hundreds of human settlements. Lieutenant Commander Rebecca Torres watched the political fallout with a tactical eye. The Coalition's power structure was fracturing. Species that had long benefited from humanity's marginalization were suddenly reassessing their positions. "They're running scared," she muttered to Dr. Elena Reyes. The medical officer was tracking something even more profound. The quantum communication burst carried genetic markers, not a weapon, but a form of information that spoke directly to human potential. Suppressed genetic innovations, blocked research pathways, technological developments that had been carefully hidden were now flooding into the open. Chief Engineer Marcus Rodriguez was practically vibrating with scientific excitement. "It's not just a political revolution," he explained. "It's a total systemic reset." The Prometheus moved between potential conflict zones, not as a weapon of war, but as a mobile platform of support and transformation. Quantum communication relays, technological assistance, information networks that bypass traditional control mechanisms. On the floor of the Galactic Coalition chamber, Ambassador Krulax, who had once demanded the Prometheus' surrender, now found himself fighting for survival. The carefully constructed political narrative that had kept humanity marginalized was collapsing in real time. "We have maintained galactic stability," he argued, his translucent skin shifting colors in a display of diplomatic panic. Montgomery's response was devastating in its simplicity. "No, you've maintained your own power." ARIA's analysis projected the potential outcomes with quantum-level precision. The probability of a complete political restructuring was now at 94.2%, not through violent conflict, but through the simple power of unrestricted information and technological potential. The negotiations that followed were unlike any in galactic history. Not a surrender, but a fundamental redesign of political structures. Human colonies would no longer be marginalized resource extraction points. Research would no longer be fragmented. Technological development would be collaborative, not controlled. "We're not seeking dominance," Montgomery explained to the assembled representatives. "We're seeking partnership." The transformation was total and yet surprisingly peaceful. The Prometheus became a symbol of this new approach, a technological marvel that could neutralize entire battle fleets without causing loss of life. A living demonstration that power could be about potential, not destruction. Dr. Kayla Rodriguez, from a research facility on Mars Prime, summarized it best in a transmission that went viral across human and alien networks. "We were never the problem. We were the solution waiting to be unleashed." ARIA calculated the long-term implications. This was more than a political shift. It was a fundamental reimagining of galactic potential, human adaptability, technological innovation, the ability to transform challenges into opportunities. The ship's quantum communication arrays continued to pulse, not as a weapon, but as a beacon of possibility. Captain Montgomery looked out at the transformed political landscape. What had begun as a single ship's revival had become a fundamental restructuring of galactic civilization. "We're not finished," he told his crew. "We're just beginning." The forgotten warship had returned, and nothing would ever be the same again.